what would you say to people who are Protestant or evangelical that have never experienced the Eucharist before, and maybe they're watching you and listening to this and they're like, man, I've never had that. I've never tapped into that. What would you have to say to somebody who's on the brink, this close of maybe taking the jump to experiencing the Eucharist, the true body, blood, soul, and divinity within the Catholic Church? What would you have to say to somebody like that?
Well, first, I just say, convince yourself intellectually and just ask yourself a few questions. How in the world could you possibly explain John 6 without really, my real food, real drink, real blood, real body, the bread that I shall give is my flesh for the life of the world. I mean, is. There's lots of Greek words for is symbolic of, is reminiscent of, is this and that, but none of those words are used. Just to be, is, which normally has the sense of identity. And of course, if you look at anamnesis in terms of what it really meant, not in terms of what, a 15th century, a person would have thought that it, meant, but was interpreting it from his point of view. But if you really look at it from the vantage point of the church fathers and from the early church, it's not just in John 6. If you start looking at 1 Corinthians 10 and 11, how are you going to interpret that, as symbolic? Paul certainly doesn't think it's symbolic for all kinds of reasons, which I could go into. But the main thing is just read those scriptures again and again. Look at the text of those Eucharistic words and look at the grammar, which is being given, etc. Look at that fact of the present passive participle. Look at the identity, the is in it. This is my body, etc. Not a Greek substitute. Go through that. And then the second thing is, like John Henry Newman, just start looking at the preponderance of the church fathers. Give me one of the early church fathers, just one, who doesn't believe in the real presence of Jesus in the Eucharist, who does not believe in the efficacious power of the Eucharist. These people, some of them had contact with the apostles, some did not, but they were very familiar with, what the church, the mother church in Jerusalem, who were the apostles of Jesus, those were the pillars that founded it. They were the ones that gave rise to the next generation, the Papiases and so forth, that finally came forth and started, the traditions that were today. We have Ignatius of Antioch, and we have St. Irenaeus, we have Justin Martyr. Just find any of these early church fathers that didn't believe in the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. Ask yourself, why is there this unanimity of interpretation and, this universality of belief? Why? Why is that there if this is such a contested issue? And why in John 6, when Jesus, finishes talking, why do they all walk away? If it was just a symbol, why would they be so scandalized? Oh, no. They think he's saying it's his real body and blood. That's why they're walking away. And it doesn't make sense. If it's just a symbol, the Greeks had tons of symbol. They didn't care about that.
Right.
The scandal was he was saying it's the real deal. Yeah. And so that's the first thing I'd say is just ask yourself that question, the scholarly question. And the second thing I would do is I would just, ask some Catholics, what have the effects of being at the Eucharist? And ask Catholics who go to daily Mass, what do you think? Do you think your life has changed since you started going to daily Mass? Well, I'll be your first Catholic who goes to daily Mass. And I'll just tell you, it's absolutely life-changing. The peace that is there, the serenity that is there, the belief and the knowledge of God's forgiveness that is there, certainly the transformation of heart that is there, certainly, the name of Jesus is so powerful in the protection from evil. You can only imagine that the Holy Eucharist has to be the worst enemy to to the evil spirit that could have been conceived.
Yeah.
And again, you can see the protection part there. All I just want people to see is, take a look at this really seriously. Ask Catholics who are daily Mass communicants, why do you keep going to daily Mass? After all, it's a commitment, and probably the priest is not the best homilist that ever hit town, and probably it's a really plain Jane Mass. There's not all the music at a Sunday that you get at a Sunday Mass. Why do you keep going to Mass? Because like me, they're hooked. Something
Yeah.
happens to them. Something elevating is happening to them, something that puts them in contact with God, even though they may not feel anything at the moment. Somehow, there is this substratum that's going through their being that is
Yes.
assuring them not only of the advent of their own salvation, but is assuring them that God has everything under control going forward. There's something there that if they stop going to the Eucharist, they would miss something that would be life-changingly missable. And just
Yes.
see if you can, don't coach them from me. Just ask around if those daily Mass types, why do they do what they do? And I'm
Mhm.
telling you, they're hooked. There's
Yeah.
something about that Holy Eucharist that really
Yes.
just reels you in. And it's not the homilies, it's not the music, it's the Eucharist. It's Jesus. It's that serenity of His presence, the transformative peace of His presence. That's what does it. And of course, it's leading to eternal life.